Hey guys, welcome to Capsule Production Podcasts. Just a couple of things I want to talk to you guys before we get started. I want to thank the people that helped me on my GoFundMe to help keep this podcast going, as well as help funds another podcast project that I'm working on. The other podcast project is called Living Room Language, and that one should actually be out in August, I'm hoping. And again, I just want to thank the people that donated. So thank you to Tammy, Tara, Jessica, and Christopher. I really appreciate it. Without you guys, I couldn't make this thing possible. So that was really awesome. As I was talking about Living Room Language, that is a podcast that I'm hoping to have, like I said, finished in August. And that one's going to be aiming to kind of simplify complicated medical ideas and concepts and kind of just make it easy to understand for everybody. I also wanted to mention that I would love to hear from you guys. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, whether it be positive, negative, neutral, whatever, I want to hear from you guys. So please reach out, contact us on Facebook at Capsule Production Podcast, or you can email me at capsuleproduction1@gmail.com, and I'll try and respond, or if you guys have a request, I'll try and make it happen. So don't be afraid, reach out. So starting with this episode, I am interviewing Jeff, my good friend and part of the Capsule Production team. He had an outreach trip in Mexico, and he had some pretty cool stories. He really enjoyed himself and got a lot out of it. So I guess without any further ado, please welcome my friend, Jeff Compton. So take it away, Jeff. So what kind of stuff did you enjoy over in Mexico?
Well, maybe just going in order. Fundraising was a pretty cool experience because I had never really done something like that before. I had fundraised, for various clubs and stuff like that before, but there was just so few of us and we needed so much money that it was more challenging, but definitely, at the same time, really worthwhile. So we set a personal goal for ourselves of about $1,500. That's what we said we'd need to buy the meds that we wanted based on experience from past trips.
So how many people were fundraising all together, including yourself?
So the pharmacy team was me, two other people from Orlando, and two from Jack. So there was only 5 of us trying to raise that money all together.
Okay, so like $300 a piece.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
that was the goal.
I gotcha.
Yeah, we're just basically trying to get OTC meds. If we needed prescription medication or like chronic disease medication, we would buy it in country. But you just got to think about the feasibility, what you're really going there to achieve. Because we're only there for a week. We only actually have 4 clinic days. And we're dispensing prescriptions to these people, can you really manage a chronic disease, what can you really help them with? So that we took into account a lot. So we basically targeted OTC medications. So in that manner, it was a lot easier to get because a lot of people might have, unused OTCs laying around at home. Or like for me, I went out personally to an independent pharmacist here in Orlando who easily, donated almost $1,000 worth
Whoa.
of OTC medication. All I did was ask nicely, but it requires less paperwork and they're just easier to get a hold of.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. He just gave you that much money and medications.
Yes, it's surprising, how nice people will be when you just tell them, that's for a good cause and just ask nicely.
Yeah, you're surprised what you get if you just ask. Did you have any issues getting through the airport with this amount of drugs? I mean, were they kind of like weirded out if you had like a bag full of drugs?
We did. We did. Basically, I suppose we've never figured out a good system of doing it, but basically what we do every year is stick all the meds into checked bags. Well, previously we were sticking them into our own carry-on bags, which we stopped this year. I guess we had enough money to just pay for. It was about three, just big suitcases that we were checking in, and basically every year we carry them past immigration in Mexico and just hope they don't look. Not that there's, I suppose, laws against it, considering that they're just OTC meds, and then a lot of stuff in Mexico is OTC that's not OTC here. So if anything, their laws are much more lenient. But you just gotta consider that kind of thing just doesn't look good at the airport.
Yeah, I can imagine. That it probably brings up a lot of red flags. Like, what are these guys doing with a whole bag full of pills? Like,
Yeah.
what else is in there?
Yeah. So we had about three checked bags, just these big suitcases, just full to the brim with all this medication. And so we're going past immigration in Mexico, and the way it works there is interesting. You basically go up to like the security guard or something after you filled out the immigration customs papers, whatever. You give them the forms, they look it through, but they don't look in your bags. And then you get up to this guard, and they have it's like a Wheel of Fortune Russian roulette kind of game or something. You basically just push this button, and for the majority of the time, like a light above you will turn green, and if it turns green, you just walk right through, and you're in Mexico and you're done. And for certain select people, it'll just turn red, and you're the person who gets, the random bag search. And so there are three of us each carrying one of these huge bags full of meds. The first two of us get through, and the third one, one of our girls, she gets the red light. And so
it's like legit random selection. That little wheel going on.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone who's gotten, she was the last one to go. So everyone is all in like another room, like looking at her, and they don't let you go back. So there's nothing we can do. We're just staring at her. She gets the red light, and she has to plop this massive suitcase on the table, and they open it up, and they just see like the hundreds and hundreds of boxes of OTC medications, and these Mexican TSA is just like, what the hell is this? And this poor girl just struggling to explain all of it. Thank God it was one of our classmates who did speak Spanish. She was at least able to explain it. What we do have, our director, I guess, for the whole University of Florida, like global health outreach programs, writes a letter, like an official letter, with official UF letterhead, and signs off that we print and bring with us in the case that this does happen. And so she had that with her, and that letter just explains, why we have all that meds, what we're doing, purpose of the trips and stuff, and if they can please let us through, So she busted out the letter, and they weren't going to let her through, but I guess she talked her way out of it and got through, because that would have been a big blow to lose, a third of all our meds. So, but we had a little hiccup there when we came into Mexico, but we got through fine.
I actually had a similar experience in Germany. I wasn't there for an outreach trip, but they have the best chocolate over there, so I just brought a backpack full of chocolate to the airport. And as soon as I got in, I got checked twice. I just patted down, and the third time, a guy came up and told me to take my backpack off.
Yeah.
Start taking it apart, and obviously it's just kind of fishy when you have so much of one thing in there. But
right.
Obviously I wasn't there for outreach, so it was just personal chocolate.
Yeah, and it's just luck of the draw, because in all the previous years we smuggled in meds, tons of meds, no problem. But you never know if you're gonna be the guy who gets caught with your chocolate or your meds or whatever it is.
So how did you end up preparing for the trip? Did you end up leaving anything home that you were irritated about, or anything you couldn't find in Mexico? Or?
So I would say the two major things I packed were meds, not for the trip itself, but just for my personal use, and snacks, because the clinic days are really long, and as you can imagine, there's tons of patients. It's really tough work. You don't get breaks, and you don't want to take breaks. So they explained to us that people in the past had worked themselves to exhaustion, without eating or drinking water or anything. So it was definitely impressed upon us before we went to bring snacks. So I bought tons and tons of snacks, um, a bunch of Cliff Bars and stuff, things that wouldn't melt in the heat. Um, like granola bars and trail mix and that kind of stuff. Try to make a little variety, and then meds for my own personal use, because I just wanted to be there and be able to perform, no matter even if I got sick or I was feeling bad. So definitely bought a bunch of loperamide, just because it's Mexico and there's all that stuff about don't drink the water, but so just to be careful, had a bunch of loperamide, anti-diarrheal, just in case my luck was bad and I did end up with traveler's diarrhea.
Yeah, really rolling the dice when you eat over there or drink over there, from what I hear. So
Yeah, funny enough, I rolled the dice immediately after getting there. I think within like 4 hours of being in country, I had a homemade pineapple juice with ice. The worst the worst possible thing you could have. We just we had a few instances like that throughout the trip, and I guess we were just lucky enough that we didn't develop anything, or maybe it's just not as common as people would think. But on top of that, we had Pepto-Bismol. A few of us brought Pepto-Bismol. We know from class and such, you can use it prophylactically to prevent traveler's diarrhea. So for the first few days, I was pretty adherent to my schedule of taking Pepto every 6 hours. So I was doing that. I had just some other basics like some ibuprofen. I brought some caffeine pills, just because I knew there were going to be long days. I might get tired, just perk myself up. Some Benadryl, just in case, just I had like an allergic reaction to something. So just basics like that, and the snacks. And definitely didn't even use half of it. Number one, because we were so overworked. We never had time to eat. So I had all these snacks and just didn't have. I was really prepared to not have to be hungry, but I just didn't have time to eat at all. So a lot of the snacks came back with me. A lot of the meds came back with me, but it's no big deal to me, to be honest. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Which was crazy to me. You were mentioning earlier, before we started the podcast, that you rarely got to eat at all during the day just because you saw so many patients. Like, how many patients were you seeing on like a daily basis?
So we only had clinic for 4 days. We saw close to 1,500 patients. It's hard to get an exact number because I think on a couple of days we just stopped counting. There were so many. And even if, and they just keep coming. And even when you're closing down clinic, people are still coming in. And you're still trying to help them. So I think the estimate was close to 1,500.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, what kind of stuff did you see? I mean, as far as the patients go, I mean, what kind of, like, disease states and what kind of ailments and such?
Definitely, I'd say the biggest thing was just musculoskeletal stuff. So just idiopathic aches and pains, tons of arthritis, which goes along, with this patient population, doing a lot of manual labor, and you gotta remember these people don't have access to healthcare for a lot of them. For the towns we went to, nearest doctor or hospital was like an hour or two away.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of them hadn't seen a medical professional in years. Some of them, over 10 years. So a lot of instances on people who had completely undiagnosed, untreated disease states, or disease states that had been diagnosed and treated, but they'd stopped treatment for several years now. So we saw just a lot of those musculoskeletal stuff. Saw a lot of kids, and the same with them. A lot of like generalized fevers and upper respiratory infections, stuff like that. We had a gynecologist with us who had her own setup the whole time, so she was referring a lot of UTIs to us, a lot of just SSTIs, your skin and soft tissue infections. We had a few of those, and we didn't have chronic meds, like I mentioned before, just because of the feasibility of putting someone on medications for a chronic disease state. So we weren't really screening for chronic disease states, and we didn't really have the ability to do so. It's not like we can get blood work. But we did see a good amount of hypertension because we were taking vitals and we were taking blood glucose, and we did see a lot of elevated blood sugars. Can't tell you how many blood sugars over 500 I saw.
Jesus,
Yeah.
500.
Yeah, people who hadn't been treated in years and years. So there was lots of that too.
I mean, as far as those patients go, did you do any counseling? Like, did you have to talk to them about diet or?
We did a lot of counseling. That portion of the counseling was covered by the med or the PA students when they're doing their workup, and it just involved basically whatever we can get these people to do without the medication or services that they'd have access to here in the U.S. So it's basically just comes down to lifestyle modification. Making healthier choices, watching sugar intake, just keeping a healthy diet, trying to get exercise. And we reinforced that the best we could, but just kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because a lot of these people are struggling to get by. So asking them to adhere to a strict diet or adhere to a new exercise regimen, you have to think about how likely it is that that's going to happen. But it's our duty to tell them that anyway.
Yeah, at least give them the information and let them do as they can. So if they did have a chronic condition, I mean, you said you can get some like pretty exotic stuff in like an OTC medication. So like, could they just go to the pharmacy and pick up like a blood pressure medication or something like that?
Yeah, I suppose that's one upside to it. If these people could had access to a pharmacy and had money, for the meds. A lot of stuff is OTC over there that you would never imagine would be OTC over here. I swung by a pharmacy a few times over there and saw everything from SSRIs to ARBs to ACE inhibitors, saw antipsychotics. I saw controls. You had a Soma, Tramadol, all OTC over there. Definitely not OTC over here.
That's crazy to think about. Those kind of drugs just flowing out of the pharmacy as easily like as Tylenol or something. I mean,
right.
Were they expensive or were they? I mean, pretty reasonably priced?
No. I ended up buying a couple bottles of metformin out of my own pocket just to replenish what we had in the clinic. So I got 2 bottles, 30 count of metformin, $8.50. Cost me about $3 US.
Wow,
yeah,
$3.
It's crazy cheap, but you have to kind of think about. That's about 60 pesos. You kind of have to think about what 60 pesos means to someone in that kind of situation in regards to the people who we were seeing. So it's cheap for us, but you never know what it's like for someone else.
Yeah, you had mentioned before we started the podcast that you bought a taco over there for like a quarter. So, I mean, as cheap as food is, I guess $3 is actually quite a bit of money.
Yeah, outside of the tourist traps, you can get a taco or something similar for about 25 cents US.
So you had a little bit of free time, so you weren't at the clinic every single day or every single hour. What kind of stuff were you guys doing for fun there? I mean, was there a lot of like swimming or sightseeing, or what did you guys do?
So the recreational stuff varies by trip. I know some of the outreach trips in other countries are really work heavy, so I don't think there's much sightseeing involved with those at all. Ours had a good deal of time for recreation, which we all appreciated. So we flew in on the Saturday, and our first clinic was on Monday. So Sunday we took time to go to one of the Aztec pyramids, Chichen Itza, which is super cool. And some of the Mexican medical students acted as sort of our tour guides, so that was nice. After that, we went to the cenote nearby, which is basically just like a big like watering hole. It's like you'll see them on YouTube all the time. It looks like a huge hole in the ground, like a big cave, and there's water at the bottom of it, and you can just jump off and dive right in. The water's like sort of like a natural spring. So those were really cool.
That's pretty amazing. So you got a little bit of vacation as well as getting to do some good stuff as far as outreach goes.
Yeah, there was there was a nice balance.
So was there any like rough parts of the country you got to go to, or you had to go through, or I mean, was it all? Did you feel pretty safe for the most part?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Our hotel was in Merida, and the places we went to set up clinic were just towns just a couple hours away from Merida. And from what was explained to us, Merida and the whole Yucatan Peninsula in general is probably one of the safest places in Mexico you can be in. Totally safe to walk outside at night. Not that I do that, but it's
Yeah.
personally because I just don't live there. But from the university students who I was talking to, they explained to me it's perfectly safe, and that's something they would do. They don't have any problems going out at night or being on their own, and they don't fear for themselves at all. It's definitely a really safe and nice part of Mexico.
So how were you received by like the patients and the people you were hanging out with? I mean, was it like they're really cool to see a American pharmacy student, or I mean, were they kind of like cold or standoffish or warm? I mean, what?
No, super welcoming and super appreciative from everyone we met. The students that we met, the medical students over there do a 7-year program, and we were paired with mostly first and second year students who have really not started learning actual medicine yet. So first and second year students are basically just still in undergrad. So we took it upon ourselves to teach them a lot during clinic, kind of just to pay them back a little because they're working so hard with us and they're translating. So we thought we'd share some knowledge with them. So anytime we were paired with the University of Yucatan students, we'd teach them a little bit about what we know. We would teach them about pharmacy. The med students would teach them about medicine, and just try and give them a leg up on their future. They were super appreciative about that. Just soaked up everything we said, and after clinic we would hang out with them too. So that's kind of like the setup that they've established based off having done this so many years. We'll all work at clinic during the day, and then at night they'll take us out to a nice restaurant or something like that, or just somewhere to go dance or have some fun. And so we really got to know them, and they just really took a great liking to us, super appreciative, and they absolutely loved us. Same goes for the patients. These people stood in line, maybe 5-6 hours just to get some vitamins.
Whoa.
And when you hand them like their 30-day supply of vitamins, they couldn't be more happy, and they're just shaking your hand and thanking you. They're just happy and humble for anything that you can provide them with. I remember it was on our last day in Merida. It was kind of like a somber moment because we were saying bye to all the medical students, and I can't count like how many of them told me, whenever you come back to Mexico, like you always have a place in my home.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was super heartfelt, and you can tell they like genuinely meant it.
That's so amazing. Like you had such a good rapport, and you made that big of an impact that people are welcome you back into their home. I mean,
right.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So just to kind of wrap this thing up, what was your favorite part of the trip? Just, and first thing that pops to your head that you just really enjoyed.
As far as the work stuff or the fun stuff?
Just anything. I mean, what did you what's your most cherished part of that trip?
I would say, ironically, the long, hard-working days. Because I've had, days like that working back here in the States, and the degree to which you feel tired and burnt out is about the same as, hard day at work down here, but it's definitely, much more rewarding.
Man, that does sound actually like pretty rewarding. Lots of long hours though. All right, so can you go ahead and just tell me about like the worst part of the trip? I mean, what part didn't you enjoy particularly?
Nothing really I didn't enjoy. I would say maybe the hardest part was just the constant work. We would go to clinic. Clinic would be about 8 to 12 hours, and it takes about 2 hours to get there and back. And so we'd start the day at about 6:30 a.m. to get on the bus, drive down there. So by the time we get back to the hotel, depending on how many patients we saw, clinic would take, a different amount of time each day. But we get back to the hotel, I'd say around anywhere between like 6 to 9 in the evening. And so we haven't really eaten anything all day. We're really tired. And the Mexican students want to go out with us, because there's so many of them. So the ones who want to go out that night were the ones who didn't go to clinics, and they're ready to go. But we've been working hard all day, but we don't want to. We want to go have fun. We don't want to let them down either, so we're definitely going out.
So he's got a whole new group of people wanting to hang out every single night.
Exactly, it's just a revolving door of people who want to hang out with us, which isn't a bad thing. So a couple nights it was like had to make a choice between like eating dinner or going out, and say pretty much every night we picked going out. So we kind of just scrounge up whatever snacks we could get, go out, have some fun, come back a little late. Into the hotel, get maybe like 3-4 hours of sleep, wake up the next day and do it all over again, and it just became like cumulative of no sleep, no food, and just being and tons of work, and so really like wears you down.
So it's like a really exhausting routine, basically.
Super exhausting. I slept for days when I got back because it really takes a lot out of you, but the reward is so much that you don't really mind at all.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of like a double-edged sword or something. You say it's like really rewarding to be able to do that kind of work, even though it's really hard. But then again, there's the exhaustion. I mean, you're going all day, 4 days in a row, and then going to hang out and trying to enjoy yourself a little bit. So
yeah.
Well, I guess that's about it, man. I really appreciate you sitting down and just talking to me about your experience there. I think you had a really good story to tell, and I thank you guys for listening. I will come back with another guest very shortly, and thanks for listening. Big thanks to Jeff for being on my very first episode of Capsule Production Podcast. I really appreciate him helping me feel my way through that first episode. And big thanks to him also for helping me produce all these episodes and being a valuable part of the Capsule production team. Definitely could not do it without his help. Thank you to you guys for listening. As I mentioned before, don't forget to check out our WordPress page at capsuleproduction.wordpress.com. I'll put a link out on Facebook and Twitter as well, but we have lots of great resources for students, even for pharmacists. We got a ton of guidelines, and you can even check out our podcast on there. And lastly, I just want to thank Sephiros for providing the music. The song is called Celestial, and you can find it at freestockmusic.com. And I will see you guys next week.